100 years, First Choice Bank has provided dedicated community banking to North Mississippi. The banking products and services you need when you need them. At First Choice, you're our priority. Make First Choice your choice for banking.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Being a parent, especially for the first time, with that comes a lot of self-doubt. As a dad, I just try to lead by example. When you're trying to be the best person that you can be, your kids see that and then they emulate that.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
Well, hello there. Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopp on here. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather at 6 as we've had some scattered showers and thunderstorms out there today. We do anticipate our chances for rainfall get quite a bit better over the course of the next couple of days as we are watching a pattern becoming a little bit more active. But certainly we've had some active weather and some storms recently. We will look at in what in some cases has been some stronger storms that had popped up earlier today, at least some spotty wind damage, unfortunately occurring for a few locations. That's one of the things we're tracking here in the Room to Room Weather Center going forward is that chance for slightly more active weather. So looking at more detail here, as you can see, spotty storms, I think, diminishing over the course of the next few hours, which is no shock. We've lost the heat in a day. I say summer storms. Those will no longer be summer storms tomorrow, as tomorrow is our first day of fall. We do expect some rain and thunderstorms are possible a little bit later on this week. We'll look at some of those threats and how that could play out here in a few minutes. And cooler weather is around the corner because what will bring us to more active weather is something that will also bring us the cooler weather that's eventually on the way as well. So as we look at the first 12 here, again, rain coverage on the diminishing phase already. We're about 20%, as you can see there at 7 p.m., 10% by 10. We don't go completely away later on tonight, but most locations drier conditions taking hold. 82, that temperature at 74 by around 10 p.m. and 72 as we look toward 1 o'clock in the morning with winds remaining relatively light to begin the first part of tomorrow. And again, as I mentioned a minute ago here, new season figuring in on this here, and that is our change over to fall happening, not because the weather necessarily transitions, because it's an astronomical event. The Earth is actually always sits on a 23.5 degree tilt from the axis as opposed to if it were just perfectly vertically up and down. And so the changing the seasons as we historically take it has to do again with when we have what we call the equinox. In particular, the autumnal equinox is what we are experiencing tomorrow. Typically comes around this date every year. And so this year, again, as we look at it, it's a time period where because of the way the sunlight hits the Earth and our position in our rotation around the sun there, the Earth's axis is neither tilted toward nor away the sun, and that means we have equal amounts of light and darkness at all altitudes, generally speaking right around 12 hours of each on the equinox, hence equal equinox, where that name comes from as far as that is concerned. Now, looking out and about as far as Mississippi Live Weather Radar is concerned, we have had some showers and thunderstorms out there this afternoon. You can see on this kind of longer loop where some of these have been somewhat heavier. We watched a few of these up here closer to the Oxford area over the last couple of hours. Did get a report from Bo Moore, the emergency manager there in Lafayette County, of some sporadic damage. We'll have that for you coming up in the next block of this broadcast as we look at some of that. Unfortunate to see some of that. And looking at kind of the latest scans here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar and coming back here to our precipitation mode, you'll notice we don't have as many of those storms that are quite as heavy as they were even just a couple of hours ago. We've had a few out here closer to Guin, Alabama that were a little bit heavier just in the last little bit. I'll make this a 1 hour loop here. And as you kind of check out over the last hour, so you can see some of those just generally speaking on the overall downswing out there toward around the Guin area as well and Guin. getting on the downswing here, the rainfall showing up there closer to Eupora. Again, not as much as what we had just even a little bit ago. And sliding up here toward northwest Mississippi. Again, these are on the downswing. We've lost the heat of the day, so we do expect these to kind of diminish over the next a little while here. One of those heavier showers closer to Coldwater. Let's come in slightly closer to that one there. In fact, I'm going to switch this over to analysis mode here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar so I can kind of get kind of a better shot of a few of these up here. And I'm going to switch this over to our radar site out of the Memphis airport. It's kind of just right there nearby. Actually, let's kind of force this to go to a different one. Give me just a moment. Lower left. And let's make sure that one is enabled. Looks like that one has gone disabled on me. So let's go to regular radar on that out of up at NQA, which is up at the Weather Service in Memphis. And you can kind of see on this one here how just our overall coverage of these storms in the last little bit really has diminished a lot more. Have this little outflow boundary there of rain cooled air kind of expanding in more of a westerly direction. And so that initiation point for, again, a few of these thunderstorms to kind of continue on. But just in general, kind of easy to see. And I have this as a very slow loop here. You can see the overall coverage of those storms definitely on the downswing as of now. A couple of cameras that we kind of looked at around the area. We'll look at a few of the more of those here in just a minute to kind of bring this back here to the latest scan. I'm going to see if for one reason or another I have popped off my, let's see if I can pull on interaction. Is that going to put that back on there for us for a moment? There we go. And there are our cameras. And now I can pop some of those on again. Appreciate the North Mississippi Storm Chasers for all these cameras here. I'm going to look from the Batesville camera. One of those we're looking at back in the northwest part of the state. And again, at that point there, still showing fairly clear conditions. I believe actually that camera might be down. They've had some lightning issues the last couple of days. They've taken a few of these cameras down. I do know that this one in Oxford is looking the correct direction back into kind of those lingering showers. 81 degrees current temperature there in Lafayette County at this time. Winds remain fairly light at about 3 miles per hour. So luckily not over the top as far as that is concerned. Let's see if we can go a little farther back there. I believe this is our Edinburgh camera, Crenshaw camera up there again. Looking just kind of that lingering leftover sort of cloud cover. We have 82 degrees in Crenshaw, the temperature as well. Those winds out of the north and west at about 8 miles per hour or so. So as we kind of bring it back over here, kind of the wider shot on the Mississippi Live Weather Radar, not a lot of big weather makers over top of us at this point, though we are eventually going to look toward some cooler air to try to make its way out of Canada. It is still a very long distance away at this point in time, as I think a lot of folks just thankful to have even a little bit of moisture out there to contend with, and certainly we've had just a little bit of that. So as we kind of advance things here and look at Futurecast, the remainder of this evening, it does have the majority of active weather back out toward locations out toward Arkansas. There's that next frontal system taking a little more shape back out there toward around Kansas and Nebraska. That later this week will bring us some cooler temperatures. But in the near term here across the Magnolia State, you just don't see a whole lot of active weather as far as tonight is concerned. We've really reached our peak. This area of active weather, though, getting slightly more organized, trying to move in from the north and west here. As you could see, in 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, all that mainly staying out in the Arkansas, where they've just been a lot more fortunate than us recently, seeing some meaningful moisture that unfortunately many of us here in North Mississippi, I think, would like to see without the severe effects that, of course, we had this last weekend, and hopefully are not going to be talking about a whole lot of that going forward as well. So again, as we kind of go into the remainder of this evening and tonight, as you can see here, our forecast for the next 24, keeping that rain coverage, again, very limited early tomorrow. I think we could have perhaps a few isolated showers and thunderstorms starting to pop up as we progress into the midday to afternoon time period for tomorrow. In general, for most of us, I think the thinking is that we'll probably be dealing with a very limited coverage of overall storms, but it's not impossible to maybe see a few of those out there. So here's hoping we get a little bit of moisture. But again, I think largely for a lot of us, it's going to still be pretty spotty. But those storm chances definitely getting a little bit more likely as we roll into Tuesday and Wednesday. Coming up here in 60 seconds, we'll look in more detail at where those chances are the most likely and kind of break down where there could be a severe weather threat, believe it or not, at least a limited one out there, as we're also looking toward the tropics as Mississippi Live Weather at 6 continues from the Room to Room Weather Center, live right after this.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce. We all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Lawpon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Lawpon has proven himself trustworthy.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lawpon.
Well, some pictures coming in here from Lafayette County. I appreciate, again, this is Bo Moore, the emergency manager there in Lafayette County, sending in some pictures from along County Road 517. Generally speaking, in the Sardis Lake area, Harmontown area there. Described there from the emergency manager as the last house before the boat ramp. I'm going to cycle through a few of these pictures if you give me a moment to kind of do that. But you can see pretty good sized tree. I say tree, there are trees there, about 3. I mean, at least one pretty good one there in the background. And I see 1, 2 other root balls there in the foreground as well, knocked down from some strong winds. Of course, if you get some decent rainfall over one of those spots and maybe you get one of those storms collapse, that's when you get that. But unfortunately, it does look like it. Obviously, this structure, that tree definitely went through that. And it's a reminder that most of the time, it's not necessarily even that the structures themselves get hit by wind when we start talking about severe weather situations. But it's more often than not because of the quantity of trees we have here in North Mississippi, those trees that come down on those. So sad to see that report coming in. And at least at the latest moment here, about 4:58 p.m. when that report coming in with one of the thunderstorms that we had there just a little bit ago. So before I kind of move on to everything else we're going to look at, I'm going to try to look a little closer and see if we can kind of catch that one. So I'm going to have to bring things in a little closer here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar for a moment. And as we look in here toward Lafayette County, I want to kind of see what was able to prompt that. Again, that was just about, it wasn't quite 2 hours ago, about an hour and 10 minutes or so ago. Again, you'll notice here, I show a storm that was collapsing, generally speaking, up in that area at that point in time. So that's why I kind of wonder about that 4:58. It's interesting that that would have been the time because there's really just not a whole lot showing up here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar at that point in time if we go back. Now, you go back to say, let's take this back a little farther. Let's make this a 3-hour loop for a moment. And so that one... Hold on. There we are. Just right there. See that? Well, so you can see it's just right there. I'm kind of in the way of that. But, I mean, when that one this is when the precipitation is kind of hitting those lowest scans. It's possible when you get one of those really, really quick downpours, you can really knock out, obviously, some reports of power outages, those kind of things in that situation. Speaking of that point, let's try to check power outages here. We have not really looked at power outages. I have not behind the scenes, I'll be honest today. We haven't really had many power outages, as you can see. So very isolated event. Unfortunately, sometimes those isolated situations do happen out of this. Speaking of the severe weather threat, not an official threat for today, but it's just a reminder you sometimes do get those spotty kind of reports even outside of days where maybe we're not under an official threat. Our day 2 threat for tomorrow for locations back to the north and west. We do have a limited threat that gets closer to us in North Mississippi. I'll look slightly closer at that here in just a moment. And then our day 3 threat does actually include parts of our area. So we'll bring that in and kind of show that in more detail. Locations like we were showing you a minute ago up there around Oxford, back toward Water Valley, out here in the Delta, closer to Cleveland and Shelby and Clarksdale and Booneville and Corinth. Thinking is, again, it would be very, very late Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning. We're more likely to see that next front kind of rolling into the area. So that would be more of the threat that we would be concerned with if and or when we end up seeing something. And so certainly watch that time period. I do want to go back to our day 2 threat here for a moment. Again, that shows you tomorrow mainly to the north and east. our rain chances aren't particularly impressive for tomorrow with our overall setup here. And so with that in mind, as we send the kids back to school for their Monday school bus forecast, again, appreciate the good folks at IMPC for sponsoring this forecast here. As you can see, we're 68 for the pickup temperature in the morning. We're 90 by tomorrow afternoon, still above normal for this time of year. Few spotty storms possible. 20% might be overdoing that just a little bit, but we'll show you that in Futurecast here in a minute. We are definitely going to have a big cool down on the way later on this week. So let's look at how Futurecast kind of plays this out over the course of the next 24 hours. You can see just a few spotty thunderstorms out there, 7 p.m. this evening. Again, that overall coverage of storms likely to decrease over the next little while here. Again, keeping it mainly dry, as you can see here, through 10 o'clock or so, but it's still a few spotty storms closer to I-55 and maybe a little bit more likely, but mostly I'm going to get out of the way, but you can see back to the north and east, and as I widen things out just a little bit more, also back to the north and west. So kind of both directions from us where we're sort of more likely to end up seeing something of some kind of significance. So again, we're mainly dry as we head throughout the overnight time period and into tomorrow, progressing into tomorrow morning, your morning commute. Couple sprinkles, not impossible, but really the northern part of the state, we are mainly dry as Maggie's kind of picking up things in the morning. Looking at those low temperatures, somewhere in the upper 60s, which again, not extreme on the warm end, but our normal this time of year is low 60s and in some cases upper 50s. So we are definitely running above our normal, our 30-year average. 66 Water Valley and Oxford coming to about 68 degrees in Tupelo, or it's about 66 in Eupora, 67 down toward Louisville, and 69 Belzona, and 70 in Greenwood. As we go throughout your Monday and over the next couple of days, you'll notice we'll continue to kind of have those low temperatures running a little warm. Again, I mentioned the normal here, that 30-year average is 62, but you can see the stiff drop as we head into this upcoming weekend, and that owing a lot to this next front that will take a few days to get the cooler temperatures and really kind of drier air behind it to sort of settle into our region. So here's a look at Futurecast as we go into your Monday morning through the commute. Our meteorologist Maggie McCauley, of course, tracking anything we have out there, starting at 6:30 a.m., 7 and 7:30 a.m., getting you ready for your work week. Of course, check her out on Mississippi Live Weather this morning. And of course, she'll be live at those points in times doing that as well. 10:30, 11 o'clock toward around midday. We are dry. We are clear on your Monday. Wider shot kind of shows some of the players working in to kind of figure into this overall forecast. Again, we do have high pressure out to the east of us, but that is kind of giving way. And as we kind of introduce a little bit more in the way of southerly flow, kind of adding a little more moisture, we reference that chance for a few stronger thunderstorms in the north. That's what we have out here toward Bowling Green, up there toward Lexington, Kentucky, and out toward Nashville. That's that more limited chance for a couple of stronger thunderstorms that way. But you'll notice the bulk of North Mississippi relatively dry. I did just for a moment there in the afternoon have a couple of thunderstorms that tried to possibly produce maybe some heavier rainfall or even some gusty winds over our area. But those chances definitely more limited into the evening. Of course, still watching that front with main issues. So that's still northwest of us. So we're still fairly hot with temperatures up to around 92 in Houston as well as Tupelo for the high. Normal this time of year, I mean, you can see it behind me there, 85 degrees. Record high is 99. So we're not record level, but when you're still within 6 to 7 of that, we're still running pretty warm. 94 Grenada, 96 there, as you can see, Greenwood, and 92 Kosciuszko, Starkville, 94 degrees in the Columbus area for highs. Futurecast, again, as we kind of change this over to our strike model, tends to be a little more aggressive, certainly being more aggressive at this point here on the quantity of thunderstorms. So it's an indication as we wind things out that if you can get some kind of disturbance, slightly more organized, maybe back out here toward Jonesboro, Memphis, perhaps we have a few more thunderstorms in our area. This is largely overdone, in my opinion, on the quantity of thunderstorms here. But again, it's a reminder, that's why we have that 20% in there for tomorrow, with the main activity that we're watching a little later this week probably coming along our front. Now, we're Tuesday morning here, that front kind of getting closer to the area as we progress into your Tuesday. Now, that's how we kind of had it come in and sort of kind of stall out. It's a sign that this front kind of sort of needs a bigger push. It'll come from this precipitation you see back to the north and west, and this is our more organized chance for some rainfall that will eventually start rolling in here. Again, look at our strike model here showing the majority of activity up to the north of us on your Tuesday during the daytime period. As kind of bring things in a little bit closer by evening, that's when we're more likely to see a few of these thunderstorms getting slightly more organized into our area. But even then, you start looking closer at this, I mean, the majority of these are fairly weak in nature, so these are not overly strong at this point as of, say, 9 to 10 o'clock, but not impossible that that is underdone. And that's something even at 10 o'clock tonight, we're going to have a latest look at our HRRR model. We always pay attention to this. We're in this time frame here. Our strike model tends to be a little aggressive on some of the earlier projections. We'll have a more refined look at that coming up tonight at 10 o'clock when we look at the very latest version of that HRRR model that powers it here. And then those thunderstorm chances do continue as that front more effectively moves in as we look into your Wednesday. So highs on Tuesday, we're 86 in Holly Springs. Again, better chance for rainfall up in the northern part of the state up here toward around South Haven and Tunica. That's why we're upper 80s. Again, maybe some rain cooled air up here. Iuka and Red Bay at 87 might be a little bit too cool on this projection there. 93 in Houston, 92 Starkville and Tupelo, and 94 degrees in Greenville, 93 in Belzona. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast. And as you'll note here, we're about 30% of that rain coverage late in the day Tuesday in particular. We're looking at there 92 your high temperature. And again, 85 is our normal. So we're well above that again into Tuesday, but again, not record setting. As we go into Wednesday, more rain chances, best rain chances going forward, about 60% on that rain coverage as we look into your Wednesday with that front moving in. And then behind that, a little bit cooler for Thursday, 83. We're going 82 as we look toward your Friday. Notice it takes a little while for the cooler temperatures to fully settle in. That's why those low temperatures get down low 60s as we look toward Friday, and then maybe even some upper 50s out there near the Tennessee state line for your Saturday morning. So kind of a cool, arguably fall-like day, and considering we're changing things over in the fall, I guess that is to be expected, right? Okay, coming up here in another 60 seconds, we're going to be looking at a couple of your weather pictures from today. We're also going to be looking at the tropics as Gabrielle out there, and then two other areas of concern as we look forward. That, as Mississippi Live Weather at 6 continues from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
At Room to Room, did you know our specialty is custom ordered upholstery? Get the furniture you want and the fabric and color selection you want. With our free design service, we won't let you make a mistake.
Be right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
Scary that it can be put into anything, and we can't even see it or notice it.
It's kind of a hazy look outside of our camera in Tupelo. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon. Hopefully you've had an absolutely spectacular weekend. It's been nice to see some rainfall. Unfortunately, as we talked about at the top of the broadcast in our last block, at least a little bit of wind damage there in Lafayette County and near the Harmontown area, according to the folks there at the Emergency Management in Lafayette County. Appreciate Bo Moore and appreciate all of our emergency managers. A very thankless job. We're going to try to do a better job of relaying those people's information and at this new venture here, and just appreciate all the hard, long hours on weekends that Bo and the other emergency managers in our area do to keep the residents of their county safe. Does report that the occupant of the mobile home, the manufactured home, and I'm going to go back here and show that here for a second. We showed this a little bit ago. Again, this coming from emergency manager Bo Moore there in Lafayette County. That's a tree that knocked right there into a structure. Luckily, the occupant of that structure, though, latest information coming in the last few minutes, nobody was injured there. And just such a blessing that is the case. Coming back over here to Mississippi Live Weather out of our camera in Tupelo, you can just kind of see a little bit of that haziness. Pontotoc doing maybe a better job of showing a slightly better angle on this because we get a little bit more of the beautiful orange colors there toward the horizon. I think we're going to be looking at a pretty nice sunset. So hopefully a few of you, I see you guys on Facebook and YouTube there, all talking to Patty and Kimberly and Sue and Ricky, Patricia. Hopefully y'all will send in some weather pictures this evening. We'd love to see a few of those there. I'm actually going to see if I can swing this camera just a little bit if you give me a moment to kind of pull that up here, because this is such a nice shot that I don't want to miss the opportunity to kind of get a better look at that. So give me a second here to type in Pontotoc. We're going to kind of pan this back to the west just a little bit. So give me just a moment to kind of swing that. Yeah, look at that there. So a lot of beautiful reds and oranges already coming through, and that sun's not even down. I think it'll do a great job of capturing some of these high cirrus clouds as well. So appreciate all your pictures that you tend to share with us on nights like this, including this one coming in from Josh in Starkville. We've got some of those crepuscular rays. We just kind of see the individual sort of rays of sunshine shooting out on that. Josh in the Starkville area sending that in using the Mississippi Live Weather app, which is probably the easiest way to send in your photographs. One thing it does, it allows us to know where it was when you submitted that picture there. And it's just right there on the home screen. I don't know if you've ever done this before. I'm going to pull up the app for just a second because it is so super simple. I mean, if you use our Mississippi Live Weather app, and appreciate so many of you that do, and many of you that are probably watching us on the app right now, if you just go to submit your pictures right there, you could take a picture of, of my face. Hey. And then after taking maybe your crazy picture, like my crazy picture there, you click use photo. And I'm going to use this photo. And then it will use, I'm not even going to put a description in. It already knows my information. And I'll send that in. And the cool thing is then I can pull that up right here on our app. Let me show you how fast this is. This is how quickly we can get something in. I think it's maybe worth us taking a moment to have this real quick. We'll see if doesn't usually take a whole lot of period of time for that to get in there. So let's go ahead and take Josh's picture for a second and pull that out there. And then we're going to put in all of the stuff from the last day. Look at that. Look at that fool right there. Well, you saw it for a second on the small image. We'll see if it'll pull up the big image yet. It's still probably processing in there. Let's click remove on that. But yeah, you can see my little face already showing up there. But that tells you how fast it is. So if you have something to report, that's the easiest way for you to get it in. There we go. I mean, come on, that's the picture we took together just a second ago. So when you share your weather pictures, it's that instantaneous with us. And it can be something, of course, we will pass on to the National Weather Service and other folks to make sure we can get the latest information out there to folks at home. And we appreciate all of you for submitting those pictures the way you so often do with us. Let's talk about the tropics here for a moment. Again, not much going on right here or in the Gulf for that matter, but Gabriella out there in the Atlantic, a Category 1 storm, and expected to strengthen a bit more over the course of the next couple of days. As of the 4 p.m. advisory there, as you can see, winds at 75 miles per hour on this Category 1 storm. Expected to strengthen to Category 2 strength, as you can see, within the next, really, between now and 1 p.m. tomorrow, so not a lot of time there. You can see overnight actually expected to be, as you can see, still Category 1, but a fairly strong one at 90 miles per hour there. All the way up to Category 3 strength within really the next, 30 hours or so. And then the weakening from there as it stays out in the Atlantic. But that does, as you can see, clearly stay out in the Atlantic, and thankfully a non-issue for us here in the lower 48, with the exception of maybe some beach erosion along the East Coast. We have done very fortunate so far to this hurricane season. Of course, peak of the season, September 11th. We're only really a week past that, so there's a lot of season still to go. Two areas overlapping to a certain extent as far as tropical development is concerned. We can actually look at those in more detail here in a minute. But when we start looking at this orange area there for a moment, we're showing a 50% chance, a medium chance that over the next 7 days could develop into a full-fledged tropical system. Now, you might ask the question, well, hold on, why do we have these kind of overlapping two areas here? And we owe that to the fact that in the shorter term here, next 2 days to next 7, there's another disturbance that's kind of working its way back toward the east as well. Back toward the west. And so it's not impossible to get something developed initially. More likely, it's kind of that secondary wave. So two different waves kind of close together there. The reason why those disturbances were showing that potential like we are there. So a couple ways to show that. Probably the easiest way here is going to be if I use our vorticity jet stream, what we call it behind the scenes. But it's an area, it's a way for us to kind of analyze those different waves. And so pretty easy to see the three that we're looking at here. This would be Gabriella, and that's kind of working its way back out there into the Atlantic. There's that kind of that initial wave, and still just kind of a wide wave, not overly impressive. You see a lot more precipitation with that secondary disturbance back behind that there. So the first wave, not impossible that develops a little more, but certainly projections unimpressed by that potential. More likely, though, that next one gets organized here on some of our projections, perhaps all the way to a full-fledged tropical system. This particular projection there does have that strengthening potentially the hurricane level. We'd be looking a week from now before that was the case. A lot can go wrong with this between now and then. One thing that I think does probably protect us more in the Gulf and here in most of the lower 48, but Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia in particular, is because we have this pretty good sized trough that will bring us that cooler air for next weekend. And that's probably going to dig this up and kind of transport this away from us. So it's unlikely that that's going to penetrate any farther back to the west. That's one of the things I think largely probably helps us out as far as that is concerned and helps it from becoming a more significant situation for us. So hopefully that's the case, that it's not more significant, but certainly we're always watching that potential as well. A reminder, of course, when we go with live broadcasts here, we have one going on now. Our next live broadcast is going to be at 10 p.m. on Mississippi Live Weather. What we're going to be looking at 10 p.m., we're looking a little bit more detail at some of those rain chances this week, in particular some of the severe weather chances. As we talked about a little bit ago, it's not a high risk for severe weather by any stretch of the imagination, but we do have a limited one that we're looking at for Tuesday, perhaps late Tuesday night and early Wednesday, the time period for that at 10 o'clock. We should have some higher resolution projections, starting to get an earlier look at how that could play out. We'll have the latest on that here from the Room to Room Weather Center coming up at 10 o'clock this evening for Mississippi Live Weather. As we kind of bring it back here again one more time, that severe weather risk is mainly up here north of Greenville, Tupelo, north of Huntsville, out toward Nashville, in this zone back to the north and east here where we're watching the most closely. I do want to check here, just to double check behind the scenes on some of the stuff going on in the chat. Appreciate Maggie and Laura and Linda and Denise and all those folks watching us here this evening on Mississippi Live Weather at 6 o'clock, or I guess it's 6:31, so we should probably wrap this up here in a minute. But yeah, I'm hoping all those folks there in Lafayette County are safe from I don't like calling things freak storms, but let's just say not usual to have kind of what we had there, and kind of show our top story from this evening's broadcast, which has been some of the damage there in Lafayette, this mobile home, manufactured home that was damaged. This in the Harmontown area near County Road 517, one of a number of trees knocked down in that area. You can see that's the tree that went through the structure there as we're kind of looking along the structure, but even behind it, a couple other trees knocked down. And similar probably to what we had in Tupelo last week, you do sometimes get these little isolated areas on Friday. We get these downbursts and the strong gusty winds that causes sporadic damage. And certainly that looks like that happened. And I'm not saying this is necessarily human tragedy because you can't tell, but this is the problem with this. As you can see how this was not exactly a perfect tree on the inside, right? It's a sign that from time to time, trees look sturdier on the outside than they are when you look on the inside there. Okay, so anyway, we will see you tonight for Mississippi Live Weather at 10 p.m. here in the Room to Room Weather Center with an update on our storm chances later this week and whether or not more of us get into the act on that. Hopefully that's not the case with these expounding drought conditions, though. We certainly need the rainfall, so we'll tell you how much of that we're looking at going forward as well. So keep it here for the very latest, and thanks for watching Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Lawpon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Lawpon has proven himself trustworthy